I had Pastor Ryan on for the leadership, Christians in Leadership earlier. But today, for today's episode, I've got live coverage and a special guest I'm really excited to introduce to you. I have David Jones. He is from Fort Knox, and he is the Natural Resources Branch Chief, which is an overpaid DNR officer, I think. No, I'm just kidding. But no, he actually runs the hunting and fishing program on Fort Knox. Say hello, David.
Hello, everybody.
He's not overpaid, I promise you. That guy's probably busier than he's supposed to be. He probably doesn't even count all of his hours on his GS time because he works overtime. But he's on here to talk today about how Fort Knox is dealing with the CWD. As you remember last week, we had Trey Webb on from Webb's Butcher. We talked about it. Doesn't necessarily impact the idea that you kill a deer and then you can eat the meat. CWD is something that's in the brain, and I think we're going to get into all that. It gets into the spinal tissue too, but there's some rules, and I believe there's some. It's a little stricter to hunt on Fort Knox. You want to go into it and tell us a little bit about it, David, and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been working at Fort Knox for 15 years. I hired in 2009. I served as a field biologist for 9 years.
Okay.
Once I had an opportunity, I was able to advance over to the installation forester for about 6 years.
That sounds like fun.
Absolutely.
Probably a lot of wildlife managing species and stuff like that.
Tremendous amount of habitat work, forest management, timber sales, exotic vegetation control, prescribed fire, you name it. It was in my...
Y'all should have had some good timber sales considering Range 8 and Table 8 and the new Air Land Combat Range.
That has the entire installation has a tremendous forest resource.
That's good.
We've had some previous consultants interact with us and estimated over at $70 million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's tremendous.
Well, we're not going to strip it bare.
No, we are not.
No, but I think that comes to the great duty that comes with an installation is its conservation management and its resource management. I mean, that's like being a good steward of the government, I would think.
Absolutely. It's a sustainable resource. It's 109,000 acres and about 80% forested.
And no ATV trails yet.
That's correct.
I still think it would be the best ATV course around. People would come from miles around.
I'd say they would, and I think some might already be doing that.
Yeah, well, if you're in Meade County, they abate the proper. It's all good.
Right. But I was very blessed. I took over the branch in April, replacing my predecessor that had been there for 33 years.
Wow.
So I've been running.
You're like the natural choice. No pun intended.
All right. But I took over in April, and it's been an exciting ride so far.
Well, we're glad to have you in the studio today. Obviously, the Messenger Studios produce a lot of content now, trying to get information out, and we have neighbored up with our partners with Fort Knox because they've always been a neighbor of Fort Knox, but the Meade County Messenger kind of puts a border on it, and so now we're the Messenger KY, and I like to educate Meade County as much as I like to educate Fort Knox on what Meade County does, but there's a lot of hunters that live in Meade County that go hunting on Fort Knox.
Absolutely. We have a tremendous amount of civilian interest hunting on the base. Just for those that aren't familiar, the base is made up of Meade, Hardin, and Bullitt County. Meade County makes up about 16% of the overall acreage.
Yeah, I think Hardin takes up the bulk, and then it's Bullitt County? Jefferson?
Correct. Yeah. Hardin is a little over 50%, and Bullitt makes up about 30%.
Yeah, you got to drive all the way around, though, like through Hardin County, Meade County, then to get to Bullitt County before you'd ever step foot on it. It's like a I-65 side, is that right?
You can actually get two different accesses. You can get to a large percentage of the Bullitt County hunting areas through the main gate, through Hardin County across the Salt River.
Okay, yeah.
And then there's a handful of areas on what we call the eastern boundary over near Lebanon Junction and Belmont.
I know that there's some big hills back there for ruck marching, so don't try to do this on foot. I'm just going to tell you.
Definitely, we call it Billy Goat Country. There's definitely some rigorous terrain over there.
Yeah. So interesting, though, is Fort Knox is extremely safe in its natural resources. Obviously, we got the CWD conversation to have today, but from logging in and logging out when you go hunting and or fishing and its resources, there's a process. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we in 2017, the Army adopted a recreational internet package called iSportsman. And now any user that wants to participate in recreation to be legal has to have a user account within that. And that is how you get your access and sign in and sign out for recreational enjoyment.
Now, it's also for safety.
Absolutely. It's accountability. We want to make sure everybody can get in and get out and everybody's accounted for.
Yeah, now y'all still patrol, like, oh, I see a truck, it's parked, this looks like a hunter, and for hunter safety, it's not like you just get a free pass to go on Fort Knox. You still actually have to maintain the legal requirements for the state of Kentucky. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, and in order to be legal to hunt on the base, in addition to having having the appropriate state license and state permit, you also have to have your Fort Knox permit. So, for example, for this fall, for deer season, there's lots of options on the state depending on your age and your category that you're in. But you need to have your state hunting license, your state deer permit, and then in addition to that, you need to have your Fort Knox deer permit. One of the big differences that is very attractive for the installation, though, is that for deer hunting, the animals on the base are considered bonus animals. They do not count against your state tag. So on the state itself, you're only you're limited to one antler deer. But on Fort Knox, and that is what is very attractive to most people, you can harvest one antler deer with your archery tackle, and you can also harvest an additional antler deer with your gun permit.
I've seen some monsters come out of Fort Knox.
Right. It's a tremendous resource. There's been hunting there through a standardized season since the 1960s. There's obviously been a lot of changes and a lot of transitions through the landscape, through the habitat. But in 2001, there was a decision made to implement quality deer management. Yeah. And in 2001, there was an antler restriction put in place for the minimum buck to be legal. It had to be at least 12 inches wide, and it's been in place since '01. It's been tremendously successful. We've been able to shift the age structure, and we push a lot of those young deer into the older age classes. Whitetail deer don't express their full potential until they're 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, and that's what makes it very attractive to most of the locals to come hunt there.
Well, speaking of that, in the last conversation I had discussing CWD, you typically won't notice any signs or symptoms of CWD until the deer are actually at an older age. So how are we looking on Fort Knox with this potential, and obviously, for the audience, the deer that they identified was on a fenced property where they let these deer grow purposely for hunting sport. It's like a deer farm than it is a natural resource.
Right. My communication with my colleagues with the state indicated that this is a breed where this animal in Breckinridge County tested positive was actually a breeding facility, and that animal was not up to standards and it was removed from the herd. They were going to consume that for the meat. Part of the requirement on a pen facility is that animal must be tested, and that's overseen by the Department of Agriculture. Yeah. And once that animal was submitted, that's when it came back as positive. Now, what that means for Fort Knox, when the state implemented the CWD surveillance area to include Breckinridge, Hardin, and Meade, and Fort Knox is made up of Meade, Hardin, and Bullitt, through discussions with higher officials on the base and through my staff, we felt for simplicity, it made sense to just encompass the entire installation. It was very difficult to try to tease out the Bullitt County portion of the base.
I'm glad you addressed that, because we were literally talking about that coming down the stairs before we come to the studio, because that would be like crazy. I know that if you harvest a deer in Meade County, you're not from Meade County, you just came here to hunt, and you take a deer from Meade County, this is what we talked about on a previous podcast, you pretty much have to gut that in the field, dress it in the field, take the spinal parts out, leave the head and the spine right there where it lay, and then you take the carcass out with the meat on it, because you can't take any spinal fluid or brain tissue across the county line. So that would be crazy to have to figure out for Fort Knox.
Right. It would get very troublesome. And again, we have as you mentioned, we have a high, tremendous local population that hunts on the base. But when we implement our quota gun hunts, which are in the next couple of weeks, we also have a tremendous amount of folks that come from out of town.
Yeah.
So we tried to get the message out. Once this deer tested positive, I believe on 14 October,
Yeah.
we stood down a little bit to try to evaluate, to come up with the best comprehensive plan.
Right.
And we came out about a week after that with our own guidelines. And the bottom line is, if you live local and you live in this established surveillance zone and you kill a deer on Fort Knox, you can leave with that animal. You don't have to do anything special. You're all within that zone.
Right.
The issue comes if you live outside of that zone.
Right.
So, for example, if you live in Louisville and you come to Fort Knox to enjoy recreation and you harvest an animal, that's where the rules or the regulations need to come into play. And in order to be safe, so we don't transmit or move a potential issue or candidate, you need to debone that animal if you're going to take it home immediately. Or you need to find a local taxidermist or processor within this zone to where you can leave it.
There, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
Now, are y'all having a test? Like, if I wanted to take the head off and test, and I'm local, do you have those services? I know our local extension office is doing that. The folks at the processing facilities are doing that, working with DNR. Natural Resources, Fish and Game.
Right. We are going to be partnering with the State Fish and Wildlife Department during our upcoming quota gun hunts, which are the 16th and 17th of November and the 23rd and 24th of November. Those are our highest volume of hunters that will be coming.
Okay.
And usually, historically, are the highest harvest rates.
Yeah.
So we will be set up to collect as many heads as we can, just to get a better sample and to get a better handle on what's going on. I just want to be very clear. Again, I've been there 15 years. We've been testing for CWD for over a decade.
Yeah.
We have never had a positive test. There's nothing that we are tracking that is concerning at this time or that we're seeing subject animals. We're just being cautious.
Sure.
And we're trying to collect more data. The resource that we have on Fort Knox is tremendous, and I want to ensure that it can stand or can be in good shape for the longevity. We do have something that, again, is very unique about Fort Knox. Even though the entire installation is 109,000 acres, there's about 40,000 that is completely off limits. We don't manage that. We don't go in there to hunt. It's all because of the way the mission has evolved over time. That's where the units shoot, and there's a tremendous amount of hazard and dangers in there.
Yeah.
So that is a kind of
exploded ordnance.
Yeah,
et cetera.
UXOs. Right. We just want to take precautionary measures. If we were not as cautious, or if we were very liberal with this, and something did happen, it would be very difficult to get this back under control in a population that is not accessible.
Yeah.
So again, we're trying to get ahead of it, out in the front of it.
Well, I think y'all are doing a great job, and I'm glad you guys could be on here today to even express this stuff. But hunting season, these are some of the things that happen as part of natural resources. We still get to eat the meat, right?
Absolutely.
So there's nothing wrong with the deer in such a way that you're going to lose your meat. And then if the deer looks funky, then that's a different conversation.
Right. We would just use common sense.
Yeah.
If the animal does look sick, obviously you wouldn't want to consume that.
Yeah.
And we're going to be partnering with the state to have those tests done, and those results usually come back in a couple of weeks.
Now, don't get caught hunting on Fort Knox property without these permits. What happens to somebody when that happens?
Right, and again, those are great questions. Those would be handled with law enforcement. Again, I'm not. I just want to make it clear.
You're not the law guy. We got it.
I'm in charge of the management
Policy. I got
That's
it.
right, in the hunting and fishing, not the law enforcement. We have a close relationship with the federal game wardens that are on the base.
Yeah.
But you will be cited for whichever violation that you are not following. If you don't have your weapon in a proper case.
Yeah.
If you don't have your firearms registration properly filled out. If you don't have the proper permit.
That's right.
They'll sign you up with whatever appropriate penalty there is.
If you are on Fort Knox and you have a unregistered weapon, just know they're going to take it. I'm just telling you that right now. So
That's correct.
It's not yours anymore. Say bye-bye.
Right. And again, just as a quick review, in order to hunt on the base, you do have to register your firearm through DES, not through Natural Resources, not through the Hunt Control section.
That's right.
Once you have done that through the Visitor Center, you pass that information on to our staff at Hunt Control, and they will update your account within iSportsman so that you're all good to go.
Yeah, it sounds complicated. It's not. It's honestly for your safety and the safety of the installation. But I will tell you, once your stuff is registered, it's a pretty simple process.
Right. We feel it's for those that are willing to go through that. We feel it's more than worth it.
Well,
if you get on
the game alone, the opportunity to have some really big bucks on your wall are pretty impressive.
Absolutely. Over the last 5 years, our yearly harvest is around 800 animals.
Yeah.
And it's probably the last couple years, it's been about 60% antler deer and 35-40% antlerless deer.
Yeah.
And again, the age structure is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And again, it just allows those older deer to express their full potential.
Yeah, you'll fill your freezer for sure. Now, fishing on Fort Knox is also a big thing. So
Absolutely.
Talk to us a little bit about some of the other natural resources that they can take advantage of through your offices and the iSportsman.
Okay. As I had mentioned previously, there are some lakes on the base that you do have to sign in through iSportsman to be legally approved to be recreating at the lakes, but there's also...
That includes kayaking.
That is correct, but there's 7 lakes that we refer to as the managed lakes that you don't have to sign into. It's free to come and go once you have the proper permit. You don't have to sign in daily, and we offer the normal Mid-South fisheries opportunities. These lakes contain bluegill, largemouth bass. We do a supplemental channel catfish stocking every summer between Memorial Day and 4th of July. Those 7 lakes, which include Lower Douglas, Upper Douglas, Sanders Springs. We have a brand new lake that just opened this past spring.
You just got me there. Is it Sanders or Saunders Springs?
Yeah, it depends on where you're from.
Okay.
I should have said Saunders.
No, I'm just asking because I've heard it like 5 different ways. So
Right.
it's. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, we were fortunate enough. We were able to open a new lake just this past spring, Castle Lake, which is in the Cantonment area. All the information that we're talking about right here is located on our iSportsman website. Or again, you can get additional information by calling our Hunt Control office at 502-624-7311.
Okay. Any big events coming up besides those dates that you mentioned for rifle and big game days for harvest?
Those would be the biggest ones that are on my radar right now. We're myself and my staff are trying to get everything squared away for that, trying to be accommodating for what we're anticipating with people following the rules, being able, again, if you live outside the surveillance zone, please still come and recreate. We have a skinning shed, we have deer hoist, we have water, electricity. We're going to have additional skinning facilities to be able to help facilitate people to debone their meat to be able to get out of here safely.
That's over at Range Control past Palma Hall, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. So
it's building 9297, located just up from Palma Hall on Wilson Road.
Yep, it's a great location, great facility, too. Y'all are doing an amazing job out there, by the way. What other types of wildlife, besides fish, but game, can I enjoy on Fort Knox?
We actually have a variety. One other thing on the fishing real quick is the trout fishery, which is in Otter.
I was going to ask that.
I forgot about that, the trout fishery within Otter Creek. But as far as other recreation, we actually still have some populations of bobwhites hanging on some of the old tank training grounds.
Okay.
Which is kind of rare for this part of the world. We have some.
Now, do y'all regulate to protect or on some of those, the bobwhite?
We just follow the normal state regulations.
Okay.
Right. And normally, if you got bobwhites in an area, you're going to have rabbits as well. Those are going to be in thickets and early successional habitat. So we still have a handful of bobwhite and rabbit hunters that still come with their dogs and try to participate. Though they're slowly fading away. That's kind of a thing of the past.
It's a lot of work to have hunting dogs, yeah.
It is. But we still have a few folks that also enjoy squirrel hunting.
Yeah.
And another big thing that's enjoyable is the spring turkey season.
Yeah.
Got a tremendous amount of interest in that as well. Again, and with that is the same as the big game with the deer. Turkeys are bonus birds in the spring. They do not count against your state tag.
Oh, nice.
And we have currently we have a limit of 2 birds in the spring.
Okay. All right. So 2 birds to fill your freezer and be ready for turkey dinner.
Absolutely.
Throughout the summer. So you don't have to wait for Thanksgiving. You can just go get it there. And so if 2 birds there and 2 birds off, you'd be 4 birds full once a quarter.
There you go.
Yeah. So, well, it's exciting. I love, well, first of all, Fort Knox is beautiful. They do a lot of work to make sure that it's preserved, not only when you're in the city portion of Fort Knox and its post, but y'all have done a tremendous job in its external regions that most people don't get to see, or they see it as they drive by but don't realize that they're driving in between it or through it. And but you see all the signs covered over, and it says, warning, government property, do not trespass.
That's exactly right.
Well, and those are there for a reason, but you'd be surprised that on the other side of those signs are actual hunting zones, and some are not. And it's very important that you get with them on their iSportsman page so you can see these maps and these zones. And there are some zones that are, I'd like to say that some hunters have been going there for a long time, and they're very secretive about their little spots on there. But it's an interesting process, but it's a great hunt. I think that you guys are doing an amazing job to do your part in conjunction with the natural resources. So is there anything else you want to make sure our hunting community knows here within our reach?
I would just say, again, let's not let this CWD issue make us scared or run us off or make you not want to hunt. Again, we're just trying to get out in front of it and take precautionary measures.
Yep.
We have a tremendous resource, and we're just trying to get a better handle on it and get a better understanding on it.
Very good. What's the best way to contact you if they had any more questions, David?
Through our hunt control office, again, 502-624-7311.
That's 502-624-7311. You can get in touch with David Jones or his team.
That's right.
And they'd be more than glad to spend the time to talk to you and explain what's going on with everything on Fort Knox, natural resources wise. Hey, I'm always glad to have you guys on. Super excited that you could join us today. Get out, get a newspaper this week. The community calendar is filled up. And we're excited for a lot of new subscribers we've gotten from our online services. So check us out at our web, themessengerky.com. David, thanks again for joining us. And as always, we love Fort Knox.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You guys have a great day. We'll see you soon.